you guys, can everybody come around a little bit more?
Sorry,
It's kind of hard to hear, I would think.
these are my kids.
Kelly, get that troublemaker Jan over here.
Jan, stop making trouble.
Where's Jan? That's Jan right there. Careful. Where's that?
I don't remember.
He's gonna stop in between.
Shut up. It's a classic.
Hey, you guys. Hey, Richard Elves. Come on up here. Turn your hearing aid up, brother. Right.
Everyone turn it up.
I'm gonna be on Facebook immediately.
You're already on, probably.
I'm his,
All right, we're just going to take a couple minutes of your time. First of all, from the bottom of our heart, thank you for coming. It's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to meet my brother and hear firsthand what happens in a country like Kenya with people that make $1 or $2 a day, and they're never blessed to be in a setting like this. He invited me to spend some time with him. Over the summer, we spent 3 weeks together, experiencing what people live in poverty, what it's really like living next to people that have mud huts, die at 40 years old, make $1, $2 a day, just never get a real chance in the world. So I'm proud of my brother. He started this charity in my parents' name.
Our
Years
parents.
ago. They're my parents. Well, we haven't done the DNA test, so.
Simply, right? We've identified an issue.
Yes.
People did say that you look a lot like the milkman.
Thank you. And he's much older than me, but we'll get to that later.
Much.
So Brett's just going to talk a few minutes about what he's doing, and there are a number of things here. There's a little bit about his book over there. Feel free to take a book. They're on us. There's a little bit about if you want to donate there. There's stuff about the kids and write letters to people that donate. There's a video in there, in that room, that kind of is running on a
It's a
loop.
PowerPoint. It's just running.
PowerPoint, yeah, video, whatever it is, PowerPoint.
You gotta work on your
one of
technical
those things. I
skills.
told you I didn't know what I was going to say. So, and then I'm going to throw him in the pool when he's done.
He will.
Yeah, so, I don't know. My knees aren't too good these
Give
days.
him
So,
$500.
yeah.
Cool.
Yes,
I'm going to turn it over to my
thumbs up.
brother, and very proud of him.
Aww.
Yeah, I'm going to talk a few minutes. As I used to tell my students in high school that I can talk forever. I tell them they can leave the room and I keep talking anyway. It doesn't really matter. So I'm going to try to keep this really short, and it's hard to. Bunny did mention that over there's a notebook there you really should try to check out. There was an earlier version that we took to Kenya. We stay very involved in these kids' lives. I get all the report cards. We sat down with them in June and opened up a folder with a report card, and they're like, oh my goodness, this guy has my report card. So it's more than just money, but if you look at that notebook, you'll see report cards. Grades are very tough there. It isn't here like we give out A's and B's. There's pictures, there's letters. If you read some of their letters, you just want to cry. But anyway, let me get to the beginning of this. And kind of always wanted to go to Africa. I'm a chicken at heart. I'm not an outdoors person at all. In 2009, I made my first trip, and I spent about 3 weeks in a little place called Dago. And little did I know it would become a big part of my life. Matter of fact, when I was first leaving there, I was like, okay, that was cool. Where am I going to go next? And by the time I landed back in Chicago at O'Hare, I was like, I got to go back there. And I've talked with people all over the world who've done similar things with similar stories. You just fall in love with the people. You want to bring all the kids home, and so on. So I had to do something. And actually, my students at the high school where I used to teach really pushed me to do a lot. So what is Dago like? Bunny kind of said, no electricity, no plumbing. AIDS has decimated that part of the world. It's very rare to run into a child who has both parents alive. Many don't have either parents, and they're lucky if an aunt or uncle takes them in. Clothes, for the most part, the clothes they have are the hand-me-downs from charities. We donate clothes. They end up in boxes in places like Dago. Most of their clothes are torn and dirty and stuff like that. So they're as poor can be. Average family income, less than $2 a day. So when I left, I said, okay, we're going to do some things. Along with my students, we started doing things like, I always make a note card and I never look at it anyway, but we started doing things like we bought shoes for kids through Tom's Shoes. We bought water filters. They had a cow that died. We bought them 2 cows. My students had to learn that, a cow dying in a place like that is a really big deal. And so we did things, and then I decided, well, as an educator, I want to do something more substantial. The average person, really in all of Kenya and Dago, has 4 years of school. How in the world are you ever going to turn around extreme poverty? And the 4 years isn't really much anyway. So I decided, well, we got to send 2 kids to high school. Only 20% of the kids in Kenya even go to high school now, and most of those only because someone from the West is probably supporting them. And from Dago, pretty much nobody's ever gone to school, because the life there is, I was telling some people earlier, the kids generally quit at about 4th grade. The government pays most of primary school, but not all of it. But the kids know that their parents are never going to be able to pay for high school. So they generally quit at about 4th grade, and because the idea is I can go out and work in the fields, make $1 or $2 a day, and help my family survive. So I started the scholarship fund with one kid, and had no idea it would blossom into what it has. We have sent 32 children to high school from a village.
Yes.
Ellie's my best fan. From a village where pretty much nobody's gone to high school. And the cool part, and Bunny got to see this, when you visit these kids at their high school, the whole life has changed. Because in Dago, they had no electricity, never saw TV, never saw internet. When my favorite, Vivian, the first time I ever visited her, it was her first year in high school, and I said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she's a very bubbly kind of girl, and she said, real smiley, I want to be a TV broadcaster. Well, the cool part about that is if I asked that question a year earlier in Dago, she never would have said that because she had never seen the TV. She clearly saw a woman doing the TV and decided to do something about it. So we have 2 really key rules. I tried to do a lot of homework before I did this, and I kind of studied a lot of these kinds of scholarship funds. 2 real important rules I think are part of the success that we've had. One of which is when we award a scholarship, it means we have enough money for all 4 years. The reason that's significant is I learned that most of these scholarship funds kind of work on a year-to-year basis. And what happens a lot of times, and these people know this, is after a year or 2, a child is told, sorry, there's no more money, you're done. I decided if I ever did that to a kid, how could I ever do that? So it's very conservative in the beginning. You know, I could have awarded more scholarships the first year. So we tell the kids, because they worry, they've heard stories of somebody else who got, all of a sudden they were done with high school. So we tell them, don't worry, you work hard, get good marks. They say marks there, not grades, and everything will be fine. And yet they still worry, even though I tell them that. Now the other rule is probably the one I should have said first. Life is much, 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 much tougher for girls than boys there. Okay, it's a male-dominated society. Bunny, I like to say, the men rule, but the women do all the work. So
100% of the work.
Bunny and I had many proposals for marriage there, but we turned them all down. All right. Anyway, so as much girls don't need to go to school. Stay home, learn how to cook, learn how to take care of the home. When mom needs somebody to stay home for the day to help out, she'll ask the daughter to stay home, but would never ask a boy to stay home. Many girls, when they get their period, they end up having to stay home and they fall behind. So what happens in a place like Dago, in 1st grade, there's about 75, 80 kids, evenly divided boys and girls. By the time they get to 7th or 8th grade, more than half of those kids are gone totally. And the ones left, there's only a few girls. All right, so then we pick children based on the test they take at the end of 8th grade. And the girls tend to score 10, 15, 20% lower than the boys do. Not because they're not as smart, they've missed a lot more school. So for a small scholarship fund like mine, we set a rule, the money gets divided equally between boys and girls. Because in our kind of fund, if we strictly awarded scholarships based on the scores, I think in the time I've been doing this, probably only 2 girls would have gotten the 32 scholarships. So it's evenly divided. So that's the good part of that is we're sending girls to school, to high school. We know they'll do just as well, if not better than the boys, if they get a chance, and they have to get that chance. Now the downside of it, if you think about this a little bit, I have had parents come up to me in Dago, very nice and polite. They're the nicest, most polite people I've ever met. And say, you gave a scholarship to a girl who had a lower score than my son who didn't get a scholarship. I'm a father, I'm a grandfather. I understand that. I understand you'd be upset, and I explain our position and why we do what we do. And they're kind of, okay, fine. I know they're still hurt. And as I was telling some people a while ago, this isn't like one of your kids applies to go to Stanford and they don't get in, so they go to UCLA instead. Okay. This is, you don't get a high school scholarship, your life is probably not going to be any different than your parents'. So anyway, the cool part is visiting them. Of the 32 kids we have sent, 4 are now in university. Of the 7, 2 are doing, I learned a term this summer called rewinding. They're actually going back to take some more classes. They're going to try to retake the test. You have to get at least a B- on this test to get to university. We're hoping that when they retake it, they'll get to university. Two stories real quick. One I tell in the book. It's called The Penn Story. I'm in my first day in 2009 in a Dago classroom. I'm sitting in back. I don't have a clue what's going on. I'm in culture shock, total culture shock. Nothing prepares you for it. So there's a young man, it's an 8th grade class, and they're all taking notes. It's a very, anybody who's an educator, they're very traditional classes. And they're all taking notes. And all of a sudden, one boy is kind of shaking his pen, like a big pen, you can tell it run out of ink. And there's tears coming down his face. And I'm sitting in back, and I'm like, I don't know, and I always have pens on me, so I go up and I hand him a pen. And, you know, he's like, wow, thank you very much. So he writes the rest of the period. At the end of the period, he comes up to me and he wants to give it back. To be frank, I don't say this in the book, but it was actually a Holiday Inn pen. And I said, no, you can keep it. So, and he was like in shock that I was going to let him keep the pen. And then the teacher standing there, I said to the teacher, why was he crying? And he said, what was going on in his mind is he may never get another pen. And therefore, if he can't get another pen, he can't go to school. And I'm like, wow, you know, that really kind of wakes you up. One other story real quick, which is a fairly new story. I told Bunny the story, I think, yesterday. I got together, a student I taught last year went through basic training this summer. He comes from a pretty tough situation at his home, and he contacted me. He wanted to get together to kind of talk about his finances. I taught economics, so they think I know about finances, which I really don't. So we got together at a Starbucks, we're sitting having coffee, and we went through a whole bunch of stuff. We're getting ready to leave, and he takes out a $100 bill from his pocket and gives it to me. And I know he comes from nothing. He has no money, he just went through basic. I said, no, Adam, don't give me any money. He says, when I got done with basic, my sergeant came up to me and said, I really like you. You did a great job here. Here's $100. Go do something good with that. And he went and he gave it to me, and it was a donation to the scholarship fund. So that was just a really, really cool story. Another one real quick, and then I'll kind of wind up here.
I do want you to tell why you started this
Yes, I have.
and why the name of the book. Just real
Okay,
quick, yeah.
good. Why, the whole scholarship fund, or mom and dad?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's named after our parents,
My grandparents.
Papa and Grandma.
I remember you kind of.
You remember me, kind of, yeah. And they passed away in 2005 and 2006, and we went through a whole bunch of stuff with them. So when I started this, you know, our parents grew up very poor. My mom on the south side of Chicago, north side, dad on the south side. And, you know, they never got to go to college, and, you know, they had a tough life, but my dad worked really, really hard, made sure that Bunny and I and our other brother had a great life, great education. I mean, everything we have, we owe to them. So I started it in their name, which makes me cry a lot, actually, but they're mostly good tears. The book, first of all, I never saw myself as an author. I'm never going to win a Nobel Prize in literature. If you're thinking it's going to be a book, it's got a Nobel Prize winner. It's not. It's kind of me just trying to tell my story. I learned a lot the last couple of years that writing is a lot harder than you thought, and getting a book out is a lot harder. I really struggled with the title. Totally struggled with it. And matter of fact, I wanted to have a title before I started writing, and I learned that was pretty dumb. So I'm like about midway through writing, and one day it kind of hit me, and I knew what the title needed to be. I do all this work through a group called Village Volunteers out of Seattle. I've been doing what's called piggybacking on them. They're the nonprofit. Now, Bunny and I are in the middle of changing that. We're actually, before the end of the year, we'll be our own nonprofit, because to take this where we want to take it to, we need to be our own nonprofit. So I do this all. A lady named Shana Green, and this is in Seattle. She actually grew up in Chicago. She was helping me, you know, and I was really nervous. And one day, every day I was calling her with questions. And she was very kind and very patient with me, because I was terrified, actually. And one day I said to her, because it hit me one day, like, well, what do I do when I get there? Like, okay, white guy's here, what do I do now, you know? And she said, just give them a hug and the rest will be easy. And it's like somewhere in the middle of writing this that came to me, and that's the title of the book. It's a little bit long. I got to write it a lot and type it a lot and so on. But it's because it's exactly true. As Bunny knows, in Kenya, they're very hugging and shaking hands and all that kind of stuff. And you just kind of go up to a kid and you hug the kid, and the kids kind of take it from there. Just lots of good things happen from there. So in finishing up here, because I know I'll go on forever here, I know Bunny has copies of the books there. What I did not say when I started, which is really terrible of me, is thank you to Carol Ann and Bunny for doing all of this. Give them a hand.
No, I did everything. I showed up at 2 o'clock.
Bunny didn't do
2 o'clock before the Cubs game started.
Bunny did nothing.
Thank you for doing nothing. Thank you.
As Bunny said, I know over there are cards that Bunny and Carol Ann have made up that have our website, which is hopefordago.org. The numbers real quick, as I was telling some people, it's incredible how low it costs. to send a child to 4 years of high school. They're all boarding schools. So it was room and board, books, fees, tuition, everything. Everything you pay there is $3,200. In the book I said $3,000. They have inflation. It's kind of about $3,200 now. It varies a lot. So $3,200 buys a kid a high school education, totally changes their life. So when people donate money, many people donate money, 20, 30, 50 bucks, whatever you can afford, that's great. We've had a number of people who've donated money to sponsor a child on their own. And we make up these plaques and that kind of stuff. Bunny has one somewhere in the house here. These plaques that we give both to the student and to the person or the people or the family who's sponsoring them. So all donations are welcome. I do a lot to keep people informed. I probably do a little bit too much of that. I share pictures with them. I have a little alien me. So, I share pictures with people, their report cards, the letters. Every time I get the report cards, we get letters from them. They write beautifully. It's all about thank you, thank you, thank you. Because when they get to high school, I'll go on and on. They know that most of the kids they grew up with are back in Dago in the village, and their life isn't going to be any different than their parents. And they see this whole new world now, and they're so appreciative. And they'll always say to me, when I get older and I'm more successful, I'm going to help other children, the way I've been helped. And that's a big part of the hope in that.
Awesome.
Anything else I didn't say?
Should we do questions? Or
If anybody wants to ask a question,
awesome.
please.
Well, for those of you who read the book, I'm a teacher, remember, I have a quiz for those who've read the book. So, yes, go ahead.
So for the ones that graduate, what do they
Good
do?
question.
Yeah.
Yes, when they graduate high school, 4 of our first 7 kids are in university. They take a test at the end of high school, and if you have to get at least a B- on the test, you get to university. So 4 of them are there. 1 started last year, 3 started just in the last few weeks, actually. Of the 3 that did not, one is a girl who's married. The other 2 is, I was curious what they were doing, and I learned they're rewinding. They're actually going back to take some classes to eventually retake the test and hoping they get to university. But you have a lot of places we want to take this to. One of the places to take it to is, I know that not all these kids are going to get to university, just like here. Because the economy is developing, there's more of a need for plumbers, carpenters, electricians, masonry people, that kind of stuff, and there's more trade schools starting. So we would like to send some of these kids, because some of them, their test score in 8th grade is so low, they could never succeed at a high school, okay? We could send them to trade schools, though, and learn more things. Learn about farming. They all farm, and they don't know anything about farming, So, the goal is eventually to get to where every child in Dago, we've given them some opportunity to have a better life, and that's kind of where we want to get to. Thanks.
A friend of mine was, he was a missionary priest in Kenya for 19 years. He's from Ireland. He actually married Wendy and I, right? How do you fix Dago?
No, it's a good question, and because people.
Why don't you repeat the question, because I'm not.
Yeah, the question. I'm sorry. The question
Can you
is.
go do that? Can you go do that? Can you go?
I'm trying.
We're trying to fix Woodside
Trying.
first.
Yeah, fix Woodside.
Woodside's fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay, well, you just asked me 2 questions, which is fine. Let me deal with the second one first here, because Bunny and I talk about this. Because I get asked a lot, will these kids go back to Dago and live in Dago and help out? And the answer is no. It's just like, my daughter-in-law grew up in a little town in central Illinois, a farm town. It's a farm town, and her and my son live in a beautiful house in the suburbs of Chicago, and she and her friends are not going back.
I understand this.
I'm sorry, what?
I grew up in East Cleveland, so I understand this program.
Oh, I'm sorry for you. All right, but they're not going to go back to Dago. It doesn't mean they won't visit, and they're all passionate about helping other people back in Dago like they've been helped. Now let me deal with the first one there, because I get asked that question. The way I get asked a lot is, what's the number one thing they need? And I always say they need like everything. The phrase I used this phrase. Did I say this in the book? Yeah. I always forget what I said. I read. We have a phrase here. What do you give somebody as a gift who has everything? I turned that around, and what do you give somebody with nothing? Right. Give a kid a pen, and it totally made his life. So, I'm an educator. I'm a believer in education. We came from poor parents, didn't get an education. They made sure we had an education. So, what I'm trying to do is give kids an education to turn it around. They need fresh water. They need, they need plumbing. They need everything. That's part of the problem. So,
Are these kids committed to go back and help the other kids?
we do. We actually started the last couple of summer. Well, they come home 3 times during the year. They come back home. And the kids in the university, this is one of the things I want to do even more of. When these kids who had an opportunity to get out of Dago, go to high school, go to university, come back and be good role models and help the kids to inspire them that, boy, if I work hard, maybe I can go to high school, maybe I can get to university too. It's, as you know, anybody who's done this, the challenges, they're really overwhelming. There's a documentary I've shown for years called The Small Act, and I use that term a lot. You know, when you go, there are times I've gone to my little room in Dago and I've cried. It's just overwhelming. And a small act, the term there is really saying, do something. Anything you do is better than nothing. If you do nothing, nothing changes. So just do something. Like you know, I've had students who gave me $1. And they're like, I'm sorry, that's all I have. I go, that's $1. That's $1 more than I have. And $1 in Kenya is a lot of money. You know, that's half of an average day's income in Dago. So just do something. There are more and more people in Africa teaching people how to be better farmers. Because part of the problem is they have a little bit of land, they don't know how to farm, they can't grow enough food to feed their family. But if they were taught modern farming techniques and had some modern farming tools, they could feed their family. And there are more and more people doing that. But also get them fresh water, get them plumbing, get them electricity.
The internet. The internet.
Internet, Bunny talked about. Now, actually, a cool thing that Bunny and I did, in the last year, at the school, the primary school in Dago, and there's an orphanage there that was actually built by the Peace Corps, they have electricity now. This is just in the last year, not the homes. And one of the great things about having Bunny there is he pushed me in ways that I probably wouldn't have thought to go, and it was great for that. And because Bunny pushed
We
me
had an open bar in Dago.
Yeah, they like that one, Bunny.
Happy hour.
Daily.
Yeah, open Dago.
You got them planting
So-
wine grapes?
One of the coolest
Full
things we
wineries.
did this summer, we did this on 2 different occasions. In the orphanage, I took my laptop. Mom and Pamela and Duncan, who host us, have a big screen TV that somebody gave them. So I hooked up my laptop to it. We had a router through our buddy George. And the first time we sat down, the 5 kids who just graduated high school recently, the second time we did it, there was a period of a few days where most of the current high school kids were back in Dago for a few days. So we sat them in the orphanage. They had never heard of YouTube. We showed them videos of speeches from Nelson Mandela, Barack Obama, Steve Jobs, you got to know him, yeah. And you know, people, who else did we do? Oprah Winfrey,
Oprah.
stuff like that. These kids they've never seen anything. Obviously, Nelson Mandela's a pretty important person in Africa. Actually, one of our students, his name Nelson Mandela. All right, and but they never saw Nelson Mandela speak. So it was amazing.
Yeah, no, that was incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I give Bunny, I probably wouldn't have done that if Bunny wasn't with me, because he was pushing me to do more of that stuff. Plus, it was the first time I was ever there when they had some electricity.
So Brett,
Yeah,
of your
yeah.
32, what was the gender split?
16-16.
16, 16?
Yes, kids, I'm real adamant about that.
And so the 32, they had to face a lot of challenges during the 4 years of high school.
Yes, only
So
25
how
are
did you-
still in high school.
There still are. Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you do when you see that? How many? I mean, what is your expectation that you expect 100% and you managed to 100% make it? I mean, how?
Yeah.
Because that's got to be tough.
It's hard. It's really tough. First of all, we're picking kind of the cream of the crop because we're picking kids with the best test scores, so that makes that question a little bit easier. But still, some of our kids struggle. We have all these rules, and one of the rules is we tell them you have a scholarship for 4 years, but we reserve the right on a year-to-year basis to reserve it. And if we don't think you're working hard, we'll pull the scholarship away. I haven't done that. There was one girl who I almost did that with, and I probably should have, to be frank. But so we reserve the right to pull the scholarship. But also, it goes back to what I was saying before. We're not just sending money. There's a lot of organizations out there, guys, who just send money. And it's not terrible. It's well-intentioned. But what makes this work is they know me. You know, I sit down with them. I go through the report cards. I know their parents. I know everybody in the village. They all know me. That's really what makes it work. That's what a lot of people ask me, what makes you unique? And that's kind of what I usually talk about. You know, when I go over the report card with them, they know I'm pretty serious. And but so we're talking when they say marks, they don't say grades. When they weren't that good, I let them have it. And then we expect better.
Do you think the boys that go through this get a different perspective of women? I have 4
Yes.
daughters.
That's a good
I have
question.
Yes.
4 daughters.
It's an incredible question.
Yeah, great.
I mean,
It is, yes, it is.
I have 4 daughters, and do they? So women, you know, have a very soft heart for the girls coming through this program.
Now the high schools are all they're all segregated. Boys schools, girls schools. They don't, you know, there's nothing there. But yes, we know if you study all the data on all this stuff. Yeah, they will get a much better image of women, will be much more respectful.
Right.
There's also, we know the more schooling kids have, the less likely they are to get AIDS. The fewer children that they'll have when they do have kids. Their children will get a better education because they had more of an education. There's all kinds of benefits that just go on
And you're
and on
changing
and on.
perception completely when
Yes.
you talk to the parents of the boys who didn't get in.
Yeah.
And you're saying that, you know.
It'd be like a hook. I told you I got it forever. Thank you very much.
I'll just tell you one story, and then it's time to drink, which I do best. But
Is this the clothes washing?
oh no, Jan's seen the clothes washing video of me.
I begged Bunny to show them. Guys, you have to see the video of Bunny washing clothes in his bucket.
Yeah, it
He's
was
never
great.
done
He
that.
doesn't want me to say that.
Yeah. So we get there the second day, and one of the kids in the book is Victor. He came with the chicken.
Yeah, Victor. Yeah. Well, Victor and Nick. Right there.
Victor runs here with a chicken that's live because he wants to give Brett a gift.
He's in university now.
He's so excited to see Brett, and his mother and father, or mother, I don't know who it is, wants to give him a gift, but he wants us to take the live chicken home because he wants to show how proud he is that he got a chicken, which gave somebody a meal.
And I was like, this thing is live.
Brett's
Oh my
like holding
goodness.
it like this, and he's asking me, "Well, you're going to take it on the plane home?" And I said, "No, we can't take the chicken home." Anyways, I think the chicken is probably right here. But
Well, we had chicken for dinner that night.
yeah, and then the second thing was we were with a group of I don't know 40 or 50 women that took care of 7,000 kids that didn't have a
Yes.
home,
It's
a
a women's
mother,
group.
a father. Many of them walked miles and miles to get to this one.
Yes.
Very articulate ladies.
Yes.
And a lady says to me, "I got a question. When you get on the plane, how do you not go to the bathroom for 8 hours on the way home?"
I didn't even know this. You
Yeah,
should tell
yeah,
me
yeah,
this.
yeah,
I didn't even hear the story.
And I said, no, they have bathrooms on the plane. She goes, "They have bathrooms on the plane?" They'd never been a plane. They'd never seen a plane. They didn't know what it was.
Yeah,
So, yeah, just their perspective on life is so different. Yeah.
Football for the Bears.
Yeah, I know. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll try. Go ahead.
Thank you all for
Yeah,
coming.
obviously I can talk and answer questions.
Yeah, we want you to have a good time. Enjoy yourself. Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Brett, hug.
That was great.
Thank you.
That was
Quiz will be
really
later.
great.
Hug. Love you. Good job.
Hang on. Before you become Mr. Popularity tonight, I want to selfie.
Oh,
Wait, $3,200.